was that he drew this little pyramid of knowledge, let's call it. And on the bottom, you have like general sales training. And for that, we hired Cardone University. Now, in the meantime, I think the best available free system is the Jordan Belfort Straight Line Persuasion on YouTube. It's called Sales School. There's about 200 videos for free that you can watch. And I used to watch them all the time in the last 10 years. The second is industry-specific IS sales training. And that's from the CFN playbook and The Office, right? That's you get that already. There's not going to be a lot of people that teach you how to sell insurance. That's why you're here, right? You have to understand how to move and shake. The best way to do that is to study the playbook over and over and over and over again. The playbook, again, in football, you don't just read the playbook and go through the plays. Right? You read the playbook over and over and over and over again. We should get to the point where we do role playing in the morning and you guys are reading it word for word for word. Okay? You guys role play at home. Role play with Francesco at home. Just have him read the other person. Right? Everybody, when you go home, read it to somebody and practice it and study it and learn the playbook. I promise you it works if you work it. Okay? And then up here is product training. And for product training, we have Thursdays. You also have case design when you're submitting policies. And then there's the Dropbox. Okay, the Dropbox has videos of Dustin explaining whole life, IUL, long-term care, everything we do. And then I'm going to add personal development on here. I guess it would be job development or business. We'll call it business development. Bless you. Like these books, like Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, The Case for IBC, Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. I can print out a list, if you'd like me to, of resources that I've read about what we do. You have to be a student of this game. You have to be a student of the game. Right? I always bring it back to sports. It's like if you're playing football and you're playing quarterback, you should be watching Tom Brady, Dan Marino, Joe Montana, and how they do what they do every single day. And be in the flow. This is what it comes down to. I talked to Jeff yesterday on my call, and it comes down to understanding what you're doing outside of being here. Now, it's not to put you down. It's just the law of the few, is that most people, just period, will not be successful. Most people, you can give them everything, and they won't make it work. It's just part of the game. And I'm learning to let myself be more in acceptance of, having a team of 8 people, and most of them are pretty solid, right? Like we have a solid team. And in a typical business, you might have 1,000 people that work for you at a bigger firm, and very few of them understand the game. And so I want you to understand how important it is to really be in the game. Like be in the game. This is the game. And if you don't like this game, there's a lot of other games. I promise you, don't come here to get money consciousness. Don't come here to get a paycheck. Don't come here to hang out with me and hang out with other people. Like we're here to make money and learn this game, right? And what that vision is that we win the Super Bowl, whatever that equates to for you. We all are making 6 figures. We're becoming the selling sunset of the financial services industry. We are growing into a high-end financial firm. That's what we're going towards, right? For everybody in here to earn 6 figures. And now again, in the law of the few, that's statistically very challenging, right? I don't mean that you guys aren't capable of that. I just mean statistically, most people average out around 50, 60 grand a year. So if we're going to be better than average, then we have to do things that are above average. And those things that are above average are working on yourself outside of here. I know that throughout the day, you might want to go home and just chill out. And chill out for an hour or 2. That's totally cool. But in the mornings and in the evenings, immediately when you get home, if you're not waking up and wired, like I literally had a dream about me and Troy writing a policy last night. Yeah, like I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm thinking about how to improve our systems. And it's part of the juice. Now, I think there's one actual thing that most people forget about, which is actually the foundation of the foundation, which is what? Improving yourself, consciousness, and personal development. And that's what I like to focus on. Because I believe that you can have all the sales training and all the insurance training and all the product training, but you don't do anything with it unless you believe that you can. Consciousness is like the roots. If this is a tree, consciousness is the roots. And this is actually I would even go as far as to say that the insurance sales, if you drew it like this, the branches are in industry sales, and then the product training are the leaves, right? So like you have the trunk, which is just having sales training. The roots are consciousness. The branches are insurance sales, and then the fruits of the leaves is the product training. That makes sense? Right? And so as a full-blown tree, you have to have all of these things. And so Hawkins talks about the pathway of enlightenment arduous. Like, isn't it hard? And he said, it is not the pathway that is arduous, but merely the degree of the ego's resistance to it. The resistance is overcome by invoking the will, which then institutes the spiritual capacities for dedication, effort, and the willingness to surrender obstacles. Devotion invites the power of love, by which humility removes the ego's props and positionalities. It also activates the utilization of information that is transformative. Intention energizes willingness, which thereby enables transformation to replace the limitations consequent to resistance. So in normal terms, that means that we are not, it's not that success is hard. It's that the struggle pulls us back. It's that the ego will hold you back. And once you break through of that, it's about your intention of being willing that will allow you to break through, right? If you don't have the intention of becoming a tree and you're just cool with being a stump, then it's not going to happen. You have to have intention. Intention energizes willingness, which thereby allows the transformation to replace the limitations consequent to resistance. Intention energizes willingness. So your intention allows you to be willing, which thereby allows the transformation to take place instead of being resistance. It is only necessary to institute rather simple procedures and processes that can be likened to spiritual engineering. By identifying the structures and forces involved, automatically reveals the necessary processes required to undo the basic structural functions. A person feels trapped. So this is an example. A person feels trapped by what it was believed to be a worldly goal, such as money, fame, or possessions, right? So somebody feels like they have to be successful, which is very common in business, which is very common in Miami, which is very common in the United States and Western civilization. With analysis, it becomes clear that it is not the things themselves to which one is attracted to, right? It's not the cars, it's not the money, it's not the girls or the guys, it's not the dinners, it's not the clubs that people are actually attracted to, but it's primarily the juice or the pleasurable emotional gratification attached to them.
Pleasurable emotional gratification.
Yes. It's the instant gratification, it's the high, it's the chemicals that are released in your brain when you walk into the club, that when you walk into the dinner, when you go to the boat, when you go to these places, that actually that's what you're actually seeking. You're not actually the car in and of itself is just a car, right? A Lamborghini is just a piece of metal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The club is just an open room with some music. The steak at Gecko is no different than a steak at Publix, They're both just stakes in and of itself, but it's the experience. It's the experience. You're addicted to the experience, the payoff. Yep. And so thus the question arises whether one can relinquish the desire for wealth and fame. It's not what the question arises not whether one can relinquish the desire for wealth and fame, but could one surrender the juice of the payoff to God? Okay? It's not about whether you can relinquish the desire, so let go of wealth and fame, but could you let go of the payoff? It's about letting go of the payoff to God. Okay? And you can substitute whatever you believe about God. I was reading another book called Change Agent over the weekend, and 90% of Americans, 92% of Americans believe in God, but only 20 to 25% are religious. So regardless of what you believe in, religion doesn't necessarily matter. Religion, later in the book, he talks about religion is more so a fundamental framework for laws and rules around how the universe works, right? But God, we believe, most people, 9 out of 10 people believe there's something else, whether it's God or spirit or source or the universe, the law of attraction. It's pretty universal that there's something outside of us that's more powerful than us. So if you're turned off by God, by the term God, substitute whatever you feel is necessary. But when you let go of that resistance to your own religious beliefs as a child, God is just God. We all have different beliefs about what God is, right? If you had to go to church or synagogue as a kid, you might not want God. If your parents got divorced or somebody died or you got abused or molested or hurt as a child, you might think there is no God. But you know that there is a God, but you don't want to talk about God because you're resistant to God. Understood? And so it's not about whether or not you can not go to the club or not go on a boat. It's about, can you let go of the payoff of the boat? Like we'll be able to go on a boat, and I don't need to do drugs, drink, and do satanic things on the boat. I can enjoy the sunset on the boat. I don't have to give in emotionally to it. Right? If we go to Dirty French, I'm grateful for the experience without being seduced by the experience. Does that make sense? Instead of, when people like your photos, instead of getting a high of that guy or girl liked my picture, can you see it as a potential lead for your business? All right, it's reconfiguring the brain to surrender the juice to God, to realize that whatever you're in is just a process. So with resistance, right? With resistance, the mind may think, no, I can't. But then if questioned again at gunpoint, could you? And then the answer is obviously yes, you can. So therefore, it's not about could you, but would you. Can't, yes, can't implies impossibility, whereas don't want to or would implies that the real underlying resistance is that of unwillingness. I can't wake up that early. Well, if you had a gun to your head, could you? If somebody walked into your room and dumped a bucket of cold water, couldn't you? It's not a matter of could, it's a matter of would. It's a matter of your willingness to be able to do whatever it takes. And not whatever it takes in a state of force, but whatever it takes in a state of empowerment. Because a lot of times we say things like, make it happen. And Jeffrey would say that there's a lot of force in making it happen. There is. You don't have to make it happen. You have to create the solution. It's a totally different mindset. This is power versus force. And so to surrender a goal does not mean to lose it. What is elusive, which means like what is hidden underneath of greed, often effortlessly materializes, right? Often happens effortlessly as a consequence of evolving to a higher level of consciousness. Which means that what you're in force about, paying the bills, fixing the car, fixing your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife, fixing things externally, they tend to just happen by a consequence as a result of you improving your consciousness. The sales just show up. The sales just show up. And when you're on a team, it's so important to improve consciousness, because when you're doing three-way calls, if one person's consciousness is at 400 and one person's consciousness is at 100, the average consciousness therefore is 250, which is it's still a little bit above courage, but therefore the potentiality, the potential of that sale closing is lower. So if you're running calls with somebody that has low consciousness, if you're doing sales with someone that has low consciousness, the chances that they actually close are lower, because because you as the closer don't care because you have high consciousness. But the person, the generator, who's still learning this stuff and has low consciousness, is sending out mixed messages of actually like commission breath. You can tell energetically through the phone, the person that sets up the call, the opener, tends to make less money than the closer, and therefore they are probably more strapped for money and more desperate, and therefore coming from a place of low consciousness. And so on a sales team, it's so important that we increase our consciousness together, because then it'll just happen in the flow. Otherwise, you're going to have one person suffering and one person in the flow on the call, and at the end of the day, you'll both just get by. Remember that on the map of consciousness, right? The very low levels are suffering, the middle levels are getting by, and the higher levels are being in the flow. And so if one person's in the flow and one person is suffering, you're going to average out at getting by. And therefore, understanding people and teaching them consciousness is so much more important, because most people have success in sales, but it's an up and down all the time. The average person that is successful in sales, especially in real estate, insurance, and businesses like that, they have high months and then low months. It's not uncommon in PHP, in FFL, in real estate, in AIL, for people to have $20,000 months and then $2,000 months, and then $15,000 months and then $3,000 months. It's more challenging to be consistent at 10,000 and go from 10 to 10 to 8 to 12 to 10 to 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 to 12, that's natural progression. But most people are up and down emotionally, and therefore they're up and down financially. And so note that the level of experiential happiness, note that the level of your happiness and your experience rises in exact accord in the same way with the level of consciousness, and not with material success. Devotion learns to expect periods of delay or discouragement, as well as moments of doubt or fear. Right? You should expect that it's gonna take a delayed amount of time to be successful. You should expect that. You should expect that there's going to be periods of doubt and fear. Was I feeling some doubt this weekend? Right? Were we laying in bed and I was talking to you about my feelings? I feel it too. I want to have 18 people in here tomorrow. I want to have everyone making 6 figures tomorrow. I'm still learning to be in acceptance. You're going to feel that. It should be expected. Right? But then I had a call with Jeff, and he's like, listen, you have 2 people that are averaging at least $10,000 a month out of 6. That's a 33% success rate. That's more than most companies have. That's very high. The average closer usually is a 1 to 5% chance. We have a high level of averages here. So don't beat yourself up that not everyone's making $1 million. This is what I have calls with Jeff about. Coming back into gratitude. And of the desire to reach enlightenment is already a divine gift to be treasured and revered. Right? He says, many are called, but few are chosen. Could be rephrased as many are called, but few choose to follow. Thus, the choice is by decision and assent of the inner will, and by this assent, the enormous power of divine will aligns with intention and empowers devotion to overcome all obstacles. Which means that it's not about If he says if you're in the room, I believe it's later on an example. I'm not sure if I put it in here, but like if you're taking, the only reason you would take golf lessons is because you want to learn golf. The only reason you would be sitting in this room is because you want to learn this business. So it's already by divine intervention that you're sitting here. It's already by choice that you're here. Many are called, but few actually choose to follow.